Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest 20 things you didn't know about video. I thought I would mix this one in here, once again showcasing how these videos will play out throughout this playlist, and I may just do a suggestions video soon, so be on the lookout for that as well. This one, though, is dedicated to a very special lady out there. It's my friend Sarah. She's absolutely just amazing, smart, beautiful, just all around a wonderful person, wonderful friend as well. So she had made this request, and so definitely dedicated to my friend Sarah. She knows who she is out there. But this one has to do with 20 things you didn't know about Christmas. So Sarah was a fan of Christmas, and then this one is obviously coming up on the Christmas holiday as well. So why not showcase a video talking about 20 interesting facts and trivia associated with this big holiday. I found out some interesting things too. That's why I love doing this series, because it's a great way of getting new information associated with a topic. So without further ado, let's talk about the 20 things you didn't know about Christmas. As always, these are in no particular order, and I'd love to hear what your own thoughts and comments on there are too, and I'll post my own afterward. So number one is this. The meaning of the name Christmas actually comes from older English words. They are specifically the words Christus Massus, which actually translates to the Mass of Christ. And then as far as the word Xmas, this has been used since around the 16th century. So it goes to show that this particular name and the variation of it has been around for obviously quite some time. And that could mean why it has such a popularity to this day. Number two is this. The world's tallest Christmas tree actually occurred back in December 1950. This was in Seattle, Washington, to be specific. And that time, that's when the tree was created. It was decorated as a Christmas tree. It was 221 feet tall. Can you imagine that? That's basically taking two blue whales side by side and then having it being even longer than that. What a sight that must have been to have seen it in person at that time. I don't know if there's been any other attempts afterward to try to go even further, but considering that that still contains the world record, it looks like it might be some time until something else happens with an even larger or taller Christmas tree. Number three is this. Let's talk about another tradition with Christmas, candy canes. If you ever wondered why they have that classic J shape, it's actually derived from a symbolism. It's supposed to stand for J for Jesus, in other words. And the red stripes were originally incorporated to help signify or bring some symbolism associated with his blood. In fact, they were invented back in Germany in 1837. So they've been there for quite some time, and it looks like the actual shape just stuck afterwards. And again, it's tied to a more of a religious theme as well when it comes to the shape of candy canes. Number four is this. Even though we have Christmas here in the U.S. as a big holiday, it's also celebrated across the world. The traditions still vary in other parts of the world. For example, here in the U.S., it's traditional to have eggnog as the usual go-to when it comes to Christmas-type celebrations. But if you can believe this, in Japan, it's chicken. How about that? How about a different way when it comes to celebrating Christmas, right? A Christmas meal. In fact, KFC is the preferred order for the Christmas meals within Japan. Some of you that are there in Japan now, or some of you that have stayed there, let me know, please. How does that work? Like, does everyone order KFC or other types of restaurants that serve chicken on Christmas Day exactly? Or is it just something that people cook at home? How big is it, in other words, when it comes to that specific celebration? I'd love to hear about that too. I'd love to have chicken too on Christmas. That would be a great way to have a really good meal as well. Number five is this. Besides having that tradition in Japan, there's other traditions to other parts of the world, and here's some of them that stand out. In Norwegian, the Norwegians specifically, they have a holiday in November where 50% of the taxes are paid. So in other words, instead of paying 100% of the usual tax, only 50% of the taxes are paid, as long as it's for something, as long as it's tied to Christmas purchases. So in November, that's a great way for Norwegians to save that money specifically for future Christmas purchases. And then in New Zealand, they have another tradition which involves television. It turns out on that day, advertising is banned throughout all television in New Zealand. So if you ever wanted to have a day there where you could just watch a set of movies or a marathon of TV shows and not have any television advertising, that's it. That's Christmas Day there in New Zealand. Number 6 is this. Christmas also has a link or origination with space. In fact, the very, very first song ever played in space was actually done as Jingle Bells. That was the very first song of any kind played in space, and it was done by astronauts Thomas P. Stafford and then Walter Schirra. Interesting that they could have picked any other song out there, especially something that was non-Christmas related, but they decided to do that. And so somewhere out there, the song itself is still being transmitted. Who knows where it is now, but someone will be able to receive it later on. And when they do, they'll be hearing Jingle Bells played throughout space. Number 7 is this. The world's biggest Christmas present was actually something given to us, a very, very important gift to the U.S. from France. This was in the form of the Statue of Liberty, which occurred in 1886. So any Christmas presents you think might be important or big or anything along those lines, no one is coming even close when it comes to both the size and the importance when it comes to the Statue of Liberty from France over to the U.S. Number 8 is this. Absolutely, Christmas is a big holiday, and there's also an entire commercial world tied to it. One of those has to do with the trees, the Christmas trees. There's so many that are sold on a yearly basis. In fact, it's around 30 to 35 million that are cut and sold each season, but there's a very strict logistic associated with that. In order to make sure that none of the inventory or stock is sold out on a continuous basis, and because the trees take so long, in fact, the average Christmas tree that is sold and cut is about 15 years old. That means that the trees that you're buying now had to have been grown about 15 years ago, and then today's trees that are being planted, or basically the seeds are being planted ahead of time, are going to be sold 15 years later. So a very strong set of logistics involved with those big companies to make sure, again, that everyone has plentiful Christmas trees ready to purchase or be sold, and that no one ever runs out. You ever notice that too, right? Stuff doesn't really get 100% sold out unless there's obviously like a huge market demand all of a sudden, but that gives you an idea of how important that business is. Number 9 is this. Christmas can also be blamed on one other thing: work/school sicknesses. It turns out every year about 40,000 people call in sick, either to work or to school. And the reason it's tied to Christmas has to do with Christmas food. Apparently, the leftovers that people eat afterwards causes them some sort of food poisoning. So that's the idea. Something happens to them after they eat the food after Christmas. So not during the actual Christmas meal, but something else afterward. Maybe the food goes bad, or maybe it just wasn't settling right with the people. But otherwise, that food leftover caused the sickness, and that's why if you have someone calling in from work or someone calling in from school, you can blame it on that Christmas illness. Number 10 is this. Another major business within Christmas has to do with Christmas cards. You get them, I get them, you buy them for others, and I buy them for others too. If you've ever wondered how much are sold each year, that's about 1.5 billion with a B Christmas cards. That's the amount that are sold every single year. And on top of that, if you wanted to tie in Visa cards, like in other words, Visa gift cards, those type of Christmas cards, over 1,000 of them are used every single minute. Can you imagine that? This video right now is just over 9 minutes long. That means around 9,000 Visa Christmas cards have been used just during the span of this videos. Crazy statistics, right? Number 11 is again tying into Christmas being a huge business. In fact, it is so large that approximately 1/6 of all retail sales here in the United States come from Christmas purchases. So 12 months out of the year, basically only 1 month that matters, it in turn takes up 1/6 of the entire retail annual sales. That is just so amazing. I believe it too. I used to work at a retail store there at the mall back when I was in college, and wow, the business leading up to it, it was like always straight after Halloween. That's when it became Thanksgiving, but pretty much it just became Christmas, and that's when the stores started to get more full, and that's when the Black Friday sales occurred, and that's when the hours were extended, and that's when the lines started forming. Absolutely, I 100% believe that it was 1/6 of the retail sales. So big that it was that we even had blacked out dates there at the store. You could not call in on certain dates. You could not go on vacation on certain dates. You had to be there or else. So that's how big it was back then. Number 12 is this. Christmas also ties into big sales for Legos. In fact, there's over 28 Lego sets that are sold as Christmas presents per second. So not 28 per minute, not 28 per hour, but every single second, 28 Lego sets are sold. In fact, so many are sold that if you wanted to give every person on Earth some Lego sets, some Lego pieces, they could easily have 80 Lego bricks to each person on Earth. Amazing statistic when it comes to that. Ironically, I don't have any Lego sets on my end. I must be like the only person in the US that doesn't have any. Number 13 is this. Two iconic Christmas mascots actually come from Christmas, but specifically tied to companies. So, in other words, the Fortune 500 type companies. And here's what I mean. Santa Claus has that classic jolly man in red suit type look. Well, it turns out it was derived from Coca-Cola back in the late 1800s. It became such a popular image that it unofficially became the look that Santa Claus is known for today. And then on top of that, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer actually came from advertising done from Montgomery Ward's back in the mid 1800s. Once again, this proved to be so popular that it just adapted its own history, like its own culture around Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but little do people know that it came from a specific ad. Number 14 is this, the actual use of Christmas trees, the ones that you have and others have within their homes and apartments, actually comes from Germany again. This was dated back around the 16th century. At that time, people first began decorating them with fruits and nuts, but then afterward, obviously, things changed to the festive stuff that we have now. But also, history can show that this tradition involving some form of trees and this form of celebration can date back to the Romans and maybe even the Egyptians, but they used different forms of plants in their case. So definitely it goes back even further with regards to that timeline. Number 15 is this. We have our old Jolly Saint Nick here when it comes to the big guy with the big red suit and the big cheeks and so on. But in other areas of the world, there's different forms of Santa Claus. For example, in Italy, there's something called La Befana, which is actually a witch that flies around on a broomstick and helps deliver toys to children. And then in Iceland, there's the Yule Lads. These are 13 mischievous trolls that decide one of two things. Either they give sweets to children that are good, or they give rotten potatoes to children that have been bad. So it all ties into the idea of being good for the year equaling rewards, otherwise getting punished for your behavior. Number 16 is this. At one point, Christmas was illegal in the U.S. in the sense that it wasn't recognized as any form of legal holiday. So trying to celebrate it before then might have meant that you didn't have any official recognition. I don't know if this meant, though, like going into any kind of jail or being fined, but it definitely helped afterward when it was made a legal holiday in 1836. Then that status helped people enjoy its prominence, and that's why to this day it still remains the biggest holiday that there is around. Number 17 is this. Christmas is here, and it's going to be usual stuff involving joy and happiness, cheers, and so on. But one bit of news that actually ties into sad news is this, and this is from an analysis done by Facebook, no less. It turns out that the biggest change in relationship statuses happens during Christmas. In fact, this is the most popular time for couples to actually break up. I'm guessing this is that thing where people prominently post on their social media that they went from being a couple to it's complicated or single, that kind of stuff. So if you know anyone else that has it happening to them during the Christmas holidays, apparently they're not alone. Number 18 is this. There may not be like an official address when it comes to Santa Claus, but there is a close one. And this is it. It's spelled H0H0H0 North Pole, Canada. So in other words, it spells out ho, 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 North Pole, Canada. This you can actually send a letter to. And in fact, over 1 million letters are sent to this address, all addressed to Santa Claus. I have no idea what happens to them afterward or if there's ever any response. Quote unquote response given, but otherwise that's the closest thing as far as an official address. Number 19 is this, once again tying into a song that's Christmas related, the number one best-selling single of all time. So if you consider pop and you consider rock and any other forms of music, it's actually Christmas. It's this. It's Bing Crosby's White Christmas single. This has now sold over 50 million copies to this day. There's a good chance there's probably even more sold, considering there's stuff obviously online and all those streaming songs that are it as well. I remember, in fact, hearing it nonstop at that same retail store that I was mentioning that I was working through in college. It was just nuts. If you ever wonder what it's like to work again at a retail store leading up to Christmas, nonstop Christmas music, the same music being played over and over, 8+ hours on end. And yes, I did hear Bing Crosby's White Christmas over and over again. So, yep, that can definitely make sense why it's the best-selling single of all time. And number 20 is this, the official Santa's tracker, the one that you see on news leading up to Christmas, the one that shows that usual cute little icon of Santa being led around on a sleigh with a reindeer. That actually started as a mistake. It turns out in 1955, an American newspaper created something called Dial a Santa. It was like a form of an ad of some sort, but they had a phone number there, but they actually misprinted it. The phone number was misprinted, but it still dialed to a real location. It went to the Continental Air Defense Command, specifically to a colonel by the name of Colonel Harry Shoup. Once he heard a bunch of phone calls coming in, and these were from children, again, dialing the wrong number, but going to him, and then he heard that they were asking for Santa Claus directions. He stated that, yes, he could definitely help, quote unquote, track Santa because of his enforcement there, like the Continental Air Defense Command. And so that's when the tradition of using radar and so-called tracking devices to track Santa was born. So it started there as a simple mistake, but then obviously grew into popularity, and now we have it as an annual basis. But that's pretty much it. Those are the things, 20 things you didn't know about Christmas. Once again, dedicated to my friend Sarah. Thank you so much for that suggestion. But if I missed anything here, and anyone wants to post a comment about it or post other interesting facts, let me know. Post them below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.